What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the first Descendant today, we're returning back to Thunder Cage, a fan favorite ultimate submachine gun in the game. And with the introduction of weapon cores, I believe this is possibly the best version of the Thunder Cage we've seen yet. Now, Thunder Cage itself is a fantastic mobbing weapon. It's no slouch when it comes to dealing with yellow bar enemies though, so it can absolutely fucking shred their HP. But one of the things that really makes Thunder Cage work very well is its ability to deal with large groups of enemies. Now, when you take the Void Vessel, for example, this generally is an area where a weapon like Voltia, the beam rifle, is fantastically good because it's equally good at cracking shields and dealing damage at the same time. But Thunder Cage can do this as well, and when you ramp its damage up to the point where you can see in this video with specific cores slotted into the weapon, it actually performs better in certain cases than Voltia, which says a lot. Of course, I haven't fully cored up Voltia yet, so that might be even better. But the bottom line is this is also only with tier 7 cores on the gun. So expect a follow-up video when we actually have tier 10 cores available to us. So when we build the weapon, let's quickly go to our, no, that's the Descendant modules. Let's go to our weapon modules first. Now, the most important thing that you generally speaking have to decide when you build Thunder Cage is whether you want to go crit or non-crit. It's technically speaking viable both ways to go, but the crit version of Thunder Cage is very spicy because the base stats of the weapon actually starts at 20% critical hit rate and a 2x multiplier. So it's almost as if it's begging you to build it into crit. But what I ended up settling on was actually a hybrid build, and this works really well now because we have weapon cores that can help us elevate certain parts of the gun just even more so. So when we start building, we start with the usual suspects. That's of course action and reaction, and of course rifling reinforcement. Now we do want a fire rate mod in as well, and we technically speaking could just go with the normal vanilla fire rate up, which is kind of like behind my face here, but I think you got it. This has 25% increase in fire rate. Or what we could do is we could go for fire rate concentration, because that's actually going to give us a little bit of additional critical hit damage as well at a 6.5% with a loss of a 5% of fire rate. Now fire rate is super good, don't get me wrong, and 5% of fire rate is 5% of fire rate. But the bottom line is when we look at the weapon cores, you'll see that we actually just give ourselves some additional fire rate from there. And so the point is that from a fire rate perspective, I think we're fine. We do want to kind of like elevate some of the other things. However, I think it's kind of like almost ends up being the same thing. I think the net benefit between fire rate up and fire rate concentration might just be a placebo for me at this point in time, but it is what it is. The other thing is submachine guns have small mag sizes. That's just a normal thing. Thunder Cage is obviously no different here. It starts with 26 in the mag, so we want to do something about that. So we're actually going to use two magazine expansions here. We're going to do something called expand weapon charge, all right, which is going to give us another 49% additional rounds in the magazine, which takes us all the way up to 38. And then we're also going to put in something called concentrate support ammo. This is over here, and that is going to give us another 30% and, you guessed it, another 6.5% critical hit damage. Now we see we end up at 46 bullets in the magazine, which is really good, and that's a lot better, especially because of the fact that we have an insanely high fire rate. We're going to be emptying that fucking mag super fast, and so we want to be able to just give ourselves a little bit of runway in terms of bullets so that we can just keep on, you know, killing shit. Now, we can also introduce an element here. It's obviously a good idea to do this, and leaning into Thunder Cage's fucking identity is basically electric. So electric here essentially adds another 30% of our firearm attack as electrical attack on top of our damage. So this is just, like I said, just, you know, extra cream on top. This is of course way more, the more firearm attack you have, the more powerful this is, because it's 30% of your firearm attack. So of course, if you stack your weapon high in terms of firearm attack, this is super beneficial and actually gives you a lot of raw damage. Now, I said this is a hybrid build, so we do also need to lean into crit and crit damage. We've already added little bits of crit damage, but we have the two blue mods which essentially get us the rest of the way there. So if we put in better, we have something called better concentration, which gives us critical hit damage, quite a massive amount. And then we also have better insight, which gives us critical hit rate. Now with both of those slapped in, we have 27.8% critical hit rate here, and we have a 3.7 times multiplier. That's really, really good, but we can make this even better. What we're going to do is we're going to put in something called edging shot. Now, edging shot does have a penalty. It gives you minus 15% firearm attack, but the 43% additional critical hit rate here for us is huge because it gets us all the way up to 36.4% critical hit rate with a 3.7 times multiplier. So essentially every third bullet crits, which is really cool. And in a gun like this where you spit out a lot of fucking hot lead, a lot of bullets, your bullet velocity, everything like that, fire rate, all that shit is super high, you're going to be critting a lot, which is really, really good. We have one mod slot left, and since this is a hybrid build, as I said, we can use one of the integration mods, bullet integration mods, and specifically this one here. This gives us some firearm attack, but it also gives us critical hit damage, which once again is just really, really good. So now we're sitting with the complete package here, and we have a 36.4% multiplier with a 36.4% chance to crit. Sorry, my bad. If it was a 36.4 multiplier, Jesus Christ. 36.4% chance to crit. Let's try again with a 4.1 times multiplier, but we're still not done yet because now we need to look at the weapon cores. Okay, but you can already see that this is already calculating my weapon cores in here, and the damage is 1.3 million. This is the highest I've ever seen this fucking gun to be, and it's just ludicrous. And it's with all of this, the big picture here, that you get to just absolutely melt groups as well as yellow bars with this bad boy. So looking at our weapon cores, you can see, and maybe I'll go to the Descendant window because that's maybe better, right? So if we go here and we go down to our Thunder Cage, we can see that we have a free augmentation slot, we have a firepower slot, we have a hit slot, attack slot, and a precision slot. So from a 5 slots perspective, this submachine gun is fantastic. There's no wasted slots here. This is all fucking cream, all right? But for our free as well as our firepower augmentation, I opted for firearm attack. I mean, we have two choices here, right? We can either go fucking bonus firearm attack to Colossus. This is not really a Colossus weapon, but I mean, you could probably use it for that, but I mean, I wouldn't, right? So we definitely opted for firearm attack, and we did this twice. So it's 2 times 34%, and that is essentially what's just, you know, pushing our firepower attack through the roof. Now for hit augmentation, we have 3 choices, right? We can either go weak point damage, which this weapon does not excel at. We did not build for weak point at fucking all, so we're not going to do that at all. Or we can go critical hit rate or critical hit damage. Now, critical hit damage seems like a good idea, okay? Because we want, when we crit, and we're critting a third of the time, we, you know, at that 36%, we want those crits to really slam, right? But I went for critical hit rate because what that does is, if we look over here, you can see that our critical hit rate sits at 43.8% with that weapon core in. So we have a 4.8 times multiplier at a 43.8% chance. This means it's almost, we're getting very close to 50 here, and I'm pretty sure once we get tier 10 weapon cores, we're going to be able to get to 50. It's really going to help this absolutely just liquidate whatever you shoot it at. So this is really good, and it's because of that weapon core that we get to that super juicy number. Let's just quickly jump back then and look at the last two. So for the last 2 cores, we have a tactical slot here. Now here we can get attribute status effect, rounds per magazine, fire rate, and reload time modifier. Now attribute status effect is out for me. I'm not interested in that. And then reload time modifier is kind of like, I like the idea of that shit because you empty your mag so fast, you want it back super fast as well. I tested it, and for me, fire rate still just felt better. Now I will warn you, and I'm sure my console brethren might even suffer from this even more, but because the fire rate is now jacked up even more on this, it does jitter a lot. Like it has a fairly fucking bestial recoil. So this is something that you have to bear in mind, and it will take a little bit of getting used to. You'll see that in some of the footage, my aim is a little bit all over the place because if you don't tame this beast, it will not fucking listen to you. But this fire rate increase here is phenomenal for me, and once again, fire rate is one of the best raw damage stats in the game. All right, There is, of course, a cap to this, and it's kind of weird. Like, it's actually, I think it's related to your frame rate or something like that. So I made sure that I stayed under Python, because I kind of like use Python as my measuring stick. So I never go over jacked up Python's fire rate. As long as I don't do that, I know that I'm not going to be clipping the fire rate and fucking up the gun. So that's cool. So we're under Python, so we're good to go. But yeah, so fire rate is really good for me. Rounds per magazine might be saucy, but I need it to be more, right? So maybe at 10 cores, level 10 cores, tier 10, whatever the fuck you want to call it, X, it would be better, maybe rounds, I don't know, but then still maybe fire rate would be better, because fire rate would probably go to 15%, which is just be like, you know. So yeah, so fire rate is what I ended up going for here. Super happy with the choice. It performs sexy once you get a hold of the gun, and you can, you know, make sure your bullets actually hit. Then last but not least, I think the precision augmentation slot is probably one of my favorite slots in the game right now. I do like raw firepower as well, but this quality of life that you get from this weapon core slot is so fucking good for two reasons: sprint speed and grappling hook charge time increase ratio. Okay, so these two for me are just GOAT. Okay, now for this particular weapon, I use Thunder Cage a lot on Bunny. Okay, and that's the reason why I opted for sprint speed. Okay, I think it's perfectly fine for you to take grappling hook charge time increase ratio, especially if you use mid grappling, because it makes a big difference. But like, for example, on Secret Garden, I run 2 grappling hook charge time increases to just essentially stay in the air the entire time if I wanted to. In this case here, I found that because Thunder Cage is a run and gun for me, because I use it on Bunny a lot, and because I use it on Descendants that I essentially like to just, you know, sort of like spray the crowd and fucking run through and stuff like that, I felt like the sprint speed just made more sense for me, especially in the context of Bunny. So I think it's, by the way, perfectly fine to take grappling hook charge time here, as I've mentioned. The other ones don't make so much sense for me. Recoil, hipfire accuracy, weapon change speed, aim shot accuracy. I think that you can control, you know, your recoil and stuff like that with this, so I don't think it's necessary to dip into those stats. It is a submachine gun, so you're not going to be shooting from across the fucking map in any case, so you're going to be up in the face of the enemy that you're killing, or at least the enemy's going to be charging you down and you're going to spray. So I think that's good. But yes, this is the final sort of like package. This is everything together. Quickly, before I forget, we also need to talk substats, right? So I haven't re-rolled these substats in like fucking months. But basically, what you're looking for here is you're looking for substats that elevate essentially everything that we've now done. So what we've done from a modules perspective, as well as a weapon cores, needs to be echoed in our substats. So we want firearm attack on here, of course, that's a definite shoe in, and then we want critical hit rate and critical hit damage. Both of those two are part of the parcel and what get us to the levels that we want to be in terms of those two substats. And then rounds per magazine is also good for us here. We don't want damage to Colossus because this is not a Colossus weapon. We don't want weak point damage because that's not really something that we built for at all. So the only one that really makes sense for us here is rounds per magazine. Now, 11.7% additional rounds per magazine does not necessarily translate to a lot of additional bullets, but at this point in time, every single additional bullet we get in extra is what gets us close to those 50 in the magazine, and it helps us since we empty them out so fast. And again, just like I said, when we then look at the weapon as a whole, we can see that we end up with 43% of critical hit rate, a 4.8 times multiplier, so super close to like a 5 times multiplier, with like a super juicy fire rate as well, and pretty much just 1 bullet less than 50, you know, in the mag. So very happy with this Thunder Cage. This can and will get better when we get the next level of power cores, which I think is coming in the first week in Feb, like the 6th of Feb or something like that. So expect a final follow-up video to this one, but get cracking on this. Build your Thunder Cage like this. This thing fucking melts. It's disgusting. Enjoy. And that's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you've built a similar, you know, submachine gun. If you've tried Python, which one do you prefer, Python or this? Are you excited to try this out? Or which is your favorite weapon that you've actually caught up? Other than that, fucking cheers.